Good evening and welcome to Kini News. Former Premier Dr Mahathir Mohamad has claimed that his views on the situation in France have been misrepresented and taken out of context.
Former Premier Dr Mahathir Mohamad has responded to criticisms over his post on his views on the situation in France. In a blog post this evening, he said that they have been misrepresented and taken out of context to portray him as encouraging violence. Mahathir, who had triggered international condemnation from a tweet of his post, said that critics had only highlighted one part of the post, which read that Muslims have a right to be angry and to kill millions of French people for the massacres of the past. He said they had stopped there and implied that he was promoting the massacre of the French instead of reading the post in its entirety. He added that because of the spin and out-of-context presentation, Facebook and Twitter had asked him to remove the postings on his social media pages. And despite attempts to explain the context of the posting, they were removed. Mahathir added that since they are the purveyors of freedom of speech, they should at least allow him to explain and defend his position. He questioned their double standards for allowing those who chose to display offending caricatures of Prophet Muhammad, and on the other hand, they had deleted deliberately that Muslims had never sought revenge for the injustice against them in the past. He added that even his appeal that the French should explain the need to advise their people to be sensitive and respect the beliefs of other people was left out. Yesterday, Mahathir had wrote a post on his blog, which was republished in a series of tweets on Twitter. He had said that he did not condone the killing of French schoolteacher Samuel Paty. However, he said Muslims have a right to be angry at France over past grievances with the former colonial power. He also pointed out that many Muslims don't respond in kind, and France should take cognizance of this.
Microblogging service Twitter removed the tweet in question from Mahathir's Twitter profile late last night.
Twitter removed one of former Prime Minister Dr Mahathir Mohamad's tweets late yesterday night for violating the site's rules. The tweet was part of a series reiterating the content of the former Premier's latest blog post, which was written in response to the French President Emmanuel Macron's purported remarks about Islam. The microblogging service had initially flagged the tweet for glorifying violence. However, they had determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible, and had provided users with links to either unhide the tweet or read more about its public interest exception policy. Many Twitter users had expressed alarm and condemnation over Mahathir's post, which had originally read, Muslims have a right to be angry and to kill millions of French people for the massacres of the past. The following tweet had continued the paragraph, which said that, quote, but by and large, the Muslims have not applied the eye for an eye law. Muslims don't. The French shouldn't. Instead, the French should teach their people to respect other people's feelings. His statement has since been carried in the international press, including Hong Kong's South China Morning Post, Qatar's Al Jazeera, Metro in the UK, the New York Post in the US, and the newswire service Reuters. Earlier today, the US Ambassador to Malaysia, Kamala Shirin Lakhdhir, said she strongly disagreed with Mahathir's controversial reaction to ongoing events in France. She said, freedom of expression is a right, calling for violence is not, and had offered condolences to France and the families of victims of violence in Nice and Paris.
Following their Presidential Council meeting yesterday, Pakatan Harapan has called on Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin to discuss the Budget 2021 with the opposition.
The Pakatan Harapan Presidential Council has urged Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin to immediately begin discussions with the opposition on Budget 2021, which is set to be tabled on November 6. This came after a meeting concerning the budget among Harapan leaders, which took place at the PKR headquarters in Petaling Jaya yesterday evening. In a joint statement, they said that Budget 2021 should focus on the needs of frontliners, identify new strategies to develop the economy, and help millions of people who lost jobs or incomes due to the pandemic. The statement was signed by PKR President Anwar Ibrahim, Amanah President Muhammad Sabu, and DAP Secretary General Lim Guan Eng. They added that millions of Malaysians are hoping for help through this budget, and also noted that many wish for the loan moratorium to be extended. They said, because of these reasons, the Harapan Presidential Council agrees with the Agong that it is important for Budget 2021 to be discussed with the opposition before being tabled at Parliament. When contacted by Malaysia Kini today, DAP Organising Secretary Anthony Loke said that the ball is now in Muhyiddin's court. He said Harapan had made it clear that the coalition is prepared to hold discussions with the government and would wait for his response. When asked if Harapan would vote against the budget if given the cold shoulder, Loke replied that it was too soon to tell.
Umno has announced that the party's ministers will remain in the cabinet, but said that a general election should be called once COVID-19 is under control.
After a Supreme Council meeting that dragged on past midnight, Umno has decided that it will remain with the Perikatan National Government for now, but wants a general election to be held after the COVID-19 pandemic is brought back under control. In a statement, Umno President Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said that all Umno Cabinet members will remain in the government and be committed to continue protecting the people's welfare and defending the party's dignity. He said, the party remains focused and consistent with their previous statements on the importance of a political ceasefire and national reconciliation while facing COVID-19 to ensure the people's well-being and political stability. He added that UMNO has also decided that the people's mandate should be returned to create a stable government by having a general election once the COVID-19 pandemic can be controlled and is at its minimum level. However, Zahid did not reveal whether the Supreme Council had deliberated on the Deputy Prime Minister's post or if a decision has been made. The UMNO Supreme Council meeting yesterday was the second one which was held this week. The meeting was believed to have started at around 9:30 p.m. at the Putra World Trade Center. Party leaders who attended the meeting declined to speak to the media after the meeting ended at around 12:30 a.m. Earlier, it was said that they would discuss a potential candidate for the Deputy Prime Minister's post. This came after Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin was reported to be waiting for UMNO to name their choice to be his deputy following the party's demand for the position in exchange for its continued support for the PN government.
The Health Ministry today reported 799 new COVID-19 cases and 3 deaths today.
Malaysia has recorded 799 new COVID-19 cases as of noon today. All the cases involved local transmissions. Health Ministry Director General Dr Noor Hisham Abdullah said that out of the new cases, Sabah accounted for 466 of them. This was followed by 170 cases in the Klang Valley. Selangor recorded 150 of these cases, Kuala Lumpur recorded 19 cases, and Putrajaya reported 1 case. 3 new deaths were reported, bringing the death toll in Malaysia to 249. All 3 deaths were recorded in Sabah. There were 90 patients in the intensive care unit, with 20 of them requiring ventilator support.
Coming up next, a woman was beheaded and 2 other people killed in an attack in France. Stay with us. Welcome back. A man murdered 3 people in France in the French city of Nice on Thursday before he was shot and taken away by the police.
A woman was beheaded and 2 others were killed in what police and officials say was a suspected terrorist attack on Thursday at a church in the southern French city of Nice. The attacker was reported to be a Tunisian man who had arrived in Europe on September 20th in Lampedusa, the Italian island of Tunisia, that is the main landing point for migrants from Africa. Thursday's attack was condemned by French President Emmanuel Macron, who called for unity alongside the nation's Catholics. He said, the whole nation is and will be by their side, so that religion can continue to be exercised freely in the country. Macron added that France would deploy thousands more soldiers to protect important sites, such as places of worship and schools, as the country's security alert was raised to its highest level. A representative of the French Council for the Muslim Faith also condemned Thursday's attack and called on all Muslims in France to cancel celebration that marks Prophet Muhammad's birthday as a sign of mourning and solidarity. Nice's mayor, Christian Estrosi, said the victims at the Notre Dame church were killed in, quote, a horrible way. He described the attack as being similar to the beheading by a Chechen man earlier this month near Paris of teacher Samuel Paty, who had used cartoons of the Prophet in a civics class about freedom of expression. Since the teacher's killings, French officials and politicians backed by many ordinary citizens, have reasserted the right to display the cartoons. This has prompted an outpouring of anger in parts of the Muslim world, with some governments accusing President Macron of pursuing an anti-Islam agenda.
Spain's parliament on Thursday voted in favor of extending a nationwide state of emergency by 6 months.
Spain will be under a state of emergency until early May, giving regions legal backing to decide curfews and restrict travel to try and contain rampant COVID-19 contagion. The Spanish government's response to the pandemic has often been hampered by political wrangling, but the government this time managed to gather enough votes for Parliament to back extending its initial 2-week decree until May 9th. Spain is one of Europe's worst COVID-19 hotspots, with over 3 million infections. Its coronavirus tally climbed by 23,580 cases on Thursday, marking a new one-day record. The government has said that the state of emergency and the restrictions on mobility it comes with across Spain were unavoidable. However, they said they will leave it to each region to decide its own measures and restrictions. While Madrid just wants to ban travel in and out of its territory for bank holiday weekends, Catalonia on Thursday joined a growing number of regions banning entering and exiting their territory for at least 15 days. Catalan officials said the new measures, which also include closing cinemas and theatres and extending a shutdown of bars and restaurants, were necessary to make sure hospitals can cope. During weekends, Catalonia residents will also be banned from leaving their municipality.
An art exhibition and a fashion show. These were among the latest events held by protesters in Thailand who are calling for their Prime Minister to resign.
Thousands of anti-government protesters gathered in Bangkok's business district on Thursday for an outdoor art exhibition to call for Thailand's Prime Minister, Prayut Chan-o-cha, to resign, and also for a reform of the monarchy. Banners depicting the repression, such as caged three-finger salutes, and Prayut looking like North Korea's Kim Jong-un, lined the road as protesters expressed their frustration against the military-dominated government. Prayut on Tuesday had dismissed calls from opposition parties to resign at a parliament session he had earlier called to discuss the months of protests demanding his departure. Protests that have brought tens of thousands of people to the streets since mid-July are the biggest challenge in years to an establishment that has long been dominated by military men close to the royal family. On Thursday, Thai protesters also criticized spending by King Maha Vajiralongkorn's palace and held a fashion show that parodied members of the royal family. The rally took place on the same day that one of the king's daughters, a designer, was to launch a new fashion collection. Speakers at the rally denounced what they said was wasteful spending by the royal family at a time that Thailand's tourist-reliant economy has been hit hard by the coronavirus. The palace has made no comment on the protests since they began, and the Thai government made no immediate comment on Thursday's event.
And that's all we have time for this evening. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. Remember to wear your mask when going out and observe social distancing as well. I'm Daniel Anthony. Thank you for watching and have a safe weekend, Malaysia.